Return of equipment and storage. Return holdover rent not less than 180 days prior to the ending of the basic term of the end of the renewal term. The lessor has elected to return the units under Section 22.2. The lessor will provide the leaser a list of not less than 10 or alternative stock storage locations. The storage location used in the storage of the rolling stock of the contingency of the United States sufficient to store the unit's available storage capacity is of such a location unless the lessor shall have purchased the units pursuant to the Section 22 of this lease, pursuant to the Section 6.9 of the participation agreement, not less than 90 days prior to the end of the lease term. The leaser will give the lessor irrevocable notice of the decision either to take possession of or store the units if and the leaser shall have decided to take possession of the units. The term of the Section 6.1b will apply. If the leaser shall have decided to store the units, the term of the Section 6.1 will apply. 6.1c will apply. Unless the lessor shall have been purchased with the units pursuant to Section 22 of the lease, pursuant to the Section 6.9 of the participation agreement, the leaser shall have decided to take possession of the units of the lessor's will, and at its sole risk and expense to deliver the possessions of the units in any storage location of the FOB such location. 1. As may be agreed by the leaser and the lessor in the writing of or 2. The absence of such agreement of the leaser may reasonably select the written notice of the lessor on before the 19th day before the end of the lease term, provided that X with respect to all units being delivered there shall be no more than 10 locations, each of which shall be located whether within the contingency of the United States shall have been adequately storage capacity. Why the leaser notices shall specify a total number of type of units to be delivered into each location. C. Unless the lessor shall have been purchased the units pursuant to the Section 22 of the lease, pursuant to the Section 6.9 of the participation agreement, if the leaser shall have been elected to store the units of the expiration date, the expiration of the lease determined within respect to the thereto, and the lessor shall store the units at free of charge at the risk and expense of the lessor for the period of the storage period beginning for the particular storage location. The expiration of the lease term for the units in storage period commencement date of the ending of the not more than 60 days 60 days thereafter on before the 90th day before the end of the lease term. The leaser shall provide the lessor with the written notice designation of choice from among the storage locations provided by the lessor pursuant with the Section 6.1a. Any storage provided to the lessor during the storage period shall be in the sole risk and expense of the lessor, and the lessor shall maintain the insurance required for the Section 12.1 of the respecting all storage units during the storage period. The lessor representative or representatives of prospective purchases, other or users such as units or stencils, the marks of the units and to inspect them during the lessor's normal business hours upon its lease business hire written and telephonic notice provided. However, the inspection stencils shall not interfere with the normal conducting of the lessor's business, provided further that the act shall inspect and re-stencil shall be such for person owned at the risk expense of Y. The lessor shall identify by the leaser against any loss, damages incurred in the connection with any such inspection, re-stenciling or re-stenciling by such person. The lessor, except for the case of the lessor's gross negligence or willful misconduct, shall not liability for any injury to or the death of any person exercising either on the behalf of the leaser or any other prospective purchasers, users' rights, inspection, or stenciling granted pursuant hereto, and the lessor shall not be required to store any unit after the storage period if the lessor does not store any unit after the expiration of the storage period, such as the storage shall not be at the sole risk of the expense of the leaser. 2. Upon the request of the direction of the lease and the leaser's sole risk and expense, not more than one of the occasion respect to each of the stored unit, and upon not less than 15 days prior written to the notice by the leaser to the lessor will and on before the expiration of the storage period transportation such as the unit of any railroad interchangeable point and points of the continuous United States of any railroad lines or any connecting carrying the shipment with appropriate instruction to cause such a unit to be transported to such locations in the contiguous United States as the leaser shall direct, whether the lessor shall have no further liability obligation with respect to such a unit. 3. Upon receipt of the leaser's written notice, the designation it chooses from among the alternative storage locations provided by the lessor under the section 6.1a, the lessor shall have the option to store such a unit at such a storage locations as it shall close, and written storage period shall be at the sole risk and expense of the lessor for a period of 60 days. During the period of the lessor shall be obligated to ensure such a unit is provided by section 12. Upon receipt of such a notice, the lessor will promptly give the notice to the leaser and of the locations at which the lessor will store such a unit. The lessor shall exercise such a option. The lessor shall, on and before the expiration of the storage period, transportation of the units of the railroad interchange points and points of the continuance in the United States on any railroad line to any connection carrying the shipment and appropriate instructions such as the units and transported to such a location, provided that such units shall be transported no more than 10 locations, each having adequate storage capacity designated to the leaser upon not less than 15 days prior to the written notice. The movement of any of the unit from such a unit of the designated by the lessor pursuant to the section 61c3 and to interchange the point thereafter designating the leaser to accordance with the foregoing sentence will be at the risk of expense of the leaser provided here. However, there are incremental costs associated with the movement of the storage facility designated by the lessor pursuant to the clause over the costs that shall be incurred of the movement to the storage facility designated by the leaser pursuant to section 6.1 shall be the account of the lessor during any storage period. The lessor shall store the units in such a manner that the manager normally stores similar units of the railroad equipment owned and managed by it. D. Upon the latest 1. The expiration of the lease term with the respect of the unit tender. 2. This tender of such a unit location determined in accordance with section 6.1b. The applicable to the tender to such a unit is storage in accordance with section 1c. And 3. Compliance with such a unit in section 6.2. The lease of the obligation of the basic rent for such a unit occurring the subsequent expiration of the lease term with respect to such unit shall terminate. In an event of any unit is not returned to the leaser in accordance with the provision of the section 6.1b, the last day of the lease with respect thereto, and if requested by the leaser pursuant to 6.1 delivered and stored in the last day of the lease term during case and conditions specified in section 6.2 deemed automatically renewed in accordance with the provisions of section 22.7 in the lease respect to such unit shall continue the effect of the lessor shall pay to the leaser for each such day from the scheduled expiration of the lease term with respect to such units until the date in which such unit is returned to the leaser in accordance with the provision of section 6.1b. The condition is specified in section 6.2 the amount equal to section 6.1b. The condition specified in section 6.2 the amount equal in daily equivalent to average basic rent of the basic term. The renewal they are applicable to such unit notwithstanding foregoing nothing in section 6.1 he shall be construed as pertinent to the authorizing lease to the fail to meet the construed by the leaser consistent with the waiving of the failure to the lessor to perform the lesser obligation to the return units according with the requirement to the lease. Nothing herein shall be an abrogation of the leaser's rights to terminate with a lease under section 15 of the result of such a failure to have such a unit returned into its possession or storage. 6.2 the condition of the equipment each of the unit is returned by the leaser the leaser pursuant to section 6.1b and one capable of performing the functions which is designed with all loading and unloading components operating in good working condition order or with allowance of the normal wear and tear suitable for the continued commercial and commodity loss carried immediately prior to such for terms suitable for the use of interchange in accordance with the applicable federal regulations, field manual, AAR, interchangeable rules for FRA, rules and regulations in all material respects and condition required for Section 8.1 in conformance with any requirement pertaining to the warranties of a manufacturer of the units during the warranty period. 6. NT7 unless industrial custom practices indicates the contrary, steam clean, otherwise clean in comparable commercial acceptable manner. 8. Free of clear of all liens except for the leaser's liens, all logs, records, books, and other materials appropriate. Copies of any other relating maintenance of such a unit upon the leaser's request be delivered to the leaser in designee upon the return of such a unit. The leaser shall have the right to expect any of the unit returned of the pursuant to Section 6.1 to ensure that such a unit is in the compliance with the condition set forth in Section 6.2. The leaser Souls, costs, expense, and risk, including with the limitation of the risk of personal injury and death, and be authorized to representative during the lessor's normal business hours upon the responsible prior to the notice of the lessor, provided, however, that the lessor shall not be liable for any of the injury due to or to death of the person, any person exercising on the behalf of the leaser the rights of the inspection granted under Section 6.2 unless caused by the lessor's gross negligence, willful misconduct. Further provided in such a unit that is not compliance with the conditions set forth in Section 6.2 that the lessor will promptly take in such steps that are necessary to bring such a unit into compliance with the conditions set forth in 6.2 in the pay of the reasonable costs expensive for the original inspection of the unit and any of the reinspection of such a unit conducted by the leaser required because such non-compliance with the Section 6.2 no inspection pursuant to the Section 6.2 shall interfere with the normal conduct of the lessor's business, of the normal conduct of the sub-lessor's business. The lessor shall not be required to undertake and incur an additional liabilities in connection with therewith. A unit shall not be deemed to have the return to the leaser for the purposes of the lease unless until it is compliance with the conditions set forth in this Section 6.2. Section 7. Liens. Lessor will not directly, indirectly create, incur, assume, permit, or suffer to the existence of any lien on, with respect to any of the units of the lessor's leasehold interest therein under the lease, except for permitted by the liens, the leaser's liens, and the liens described in Section 6.4a and 6.4b of the participation agreement. The lessor shall promptly and its own expense take such an action to be taken as be necessary, duly discharge or bond or responsible satisfactions of the leasers, indentured trustee, and any such lien not accepted above in same shall arise at any time.